Urban agriculture sometimes sounds like an oxymoron, right? But Cincinnati recently took new steps to put more community gardens in neighborhoods. Community gardens like this one in Price Hill not only provide a source of fresh fruits and vegetables, they also help bring people in neighborhoods together. In some cases, they give folks a chance to earn some extra money. Joining us to talk more about all of the new rules associated with community gardens and how they'll help neighborhoods is Michaela Oldfield, the director of the Greater Cincinnati Regional Food Policy Council. Michaela, I want to thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
How have community gardens changed the landscape of our neighborhoods?
Yeah, so community gardens are a great opportunity for people to get out and get to know their neighbors and get to grow some of their own fresh food. And in some cases there have been community gardens and some very small scale urban farms that have managed to establish their own businesses and successfully start earning their own income.
So source of income, and it gets away from the idea of food deserts too in some cases, right?
It can help address the issue of food deserts because a lot of urban gardens and community farms and urban gardens are in a lot of the neighborhoods that have low access to healthy, fresh produce. So for families or people who like gardening and want to get out and do that kind of activity, it does give them the land and the space to grow their own food.
Okay, speaking of the people who want to get out and do that activity, there are some new regulations on the books. Do you mind if we talk about those a little bit? If you were to name like the top three, what would they be?
Right, so one thing is these new regulations make it so that community gardens and urban farms are now permitted throughout the city. So they were previously allowed in certain neighborhoods under certain conditions, but it is now going to be permitted throughout the city. There are some restrictions on if you want to be growing on land over a certain size and you're in a residential neighborhood, there's limits on what you can do. And then if you're in a formerly manufacturing district, there are limits that are meant to protect, make sure you've got safe soil to be growing in.
Okay, and who checks that?
So the Building and Zoning Inspection Department is going to do that. So if you want to be in a commercial district, you'll have to submit to them for a certificate of compliance, which is a, I think, fairly small procedure just to verify that you've tested your soil or that you're going to grow in raised beds, so you won't be using the soil that's in the ground.
Are there costs to the new regulations? Financial costs?
To who?
To the community gardeners.
To the community. So not really.
Okay.
It depends on what you want to do. So if you just want to start a community garden, there's not going to be any sort of permitting or additional regulatory costs because they are going to be permitted by right. If you want to build a structure like a tool shed or maybe a hoop house, which is a sort of temporary way to extend the season, there are some permitting requirements for that would be you'd have to check with the Building and Zoning Department on the specific costs for that. So there could be costs depending on how ambitious of a project you want to take on.
Okay, and a question that I have, there is a class. If you're interested in starting a community garden, how do you find out about that and where do you go?
Yeah, so the Civic Garden Center, which is located in Avondale, has actually an enormous number of resources for people who want to do all types of gardening. But they do offer a 12-week class that's a certification for establishing a community garden that goes over for everything from how do you find the right people and get the right partners and make sure you're doing a garden that is really what the community want to things like how do you do soil testing, what kind of crops can you grow, how do you plan crops for the seasons around here.
Okay, and if you had one message to folks sitting out there and watching who might be interested in starting up a community garden, might be unfamiliar with the new regulations that are out there, what would that message be?
My first message would be if you do want to start a community garden, absolutely reach out to the Civic Garden Center and the city's Office of Environment and Sustainability, which also has some financial resources to help people start gardens and farms. We'd also welcome hearing from them at the Food Policy Council, though we're more on the writing policy side than on the helping implement it. So that would be my advice, would be reach out.
All right, reach out. Good advice. Michaela, thank you so much.
Thank you for this opportunity.